Hey goddesses and warriors, are you bored yet at being at home? Since you've been at home in isolation, for those of you who are following some major health safety protocols, have you noticed if you have been more or less horny since all of this went down? There seems to be a link between boredom and how much sex you have. Keep watching and I'm gonna tell you why. So if you're bored, do you want to have more sex or less sex? What do you think? Have you been more aroused since you've been home? Have you been feeling sexier, feeling yourself, feeling your partner a little bit more? Well, here's the thing. Some people think that if you're bored, you may actually want to have more sex. A study in the Journal of Sexual Medicine in 2020 investigated boredom as a trigger for hypersexuality. Now, the study that came out in the Journal of Sexual Medicine did find a correlation between boredom and hypersexuality. As in, the more bored you are, the more sex you want to have, or the more sexual you become, or the arousal of your sexual interest will peak. Some of the results of this study may or may not be disputed. However, another study came out of Croatia that did link a connection between boredom and hypersexuality. This study, though, also demonstrated that boredom not only may potentially influence a desire for hypersexuality, also may increase erectile dysfunction. So it pretty much sounds like if you're bored, you want to have more sex, but your dick won't work. Worse. Okay, but what exactly is sexual boredom? Some of you may be watching this and be like, yeah, I'm pretty bored, but like, what are you gonna do about it? Or do I actually have sexual boredom? Sexual boredom is a catch-all phrase for behaviors, associations, emotions that you may feel in relation to loss of sexual interest in your partner. Here's the thing though, if we lose sexual interest with our partner, what triggers that? Because as we know, sex and loss of sex or loss of desire is usually a symptom of something bigger, a different, bigger problem that is going on in your relationship, not just about the sex. If sexual boredom is potentially just a catch-all phrase, then could it also just be not real? Is sexual boredom just a mask for something else that's going on? So here's the thing about boredom. When we are bored, it's usually because we are trying to avoid uncomfortable feelings. So feelings like resentment, conflict, not being able to face power struggles, complacency, not really liking your life, feeling unappreciated or being vulnerable. Generally speaking, boredom is usually a result of having one or similar to those of emotions, behaviors, and feelings. Another thing that we know is sexual energy is a huge power source within us, right? We are like little batteries, just like walking around and having a great time living your best life. Well, currently we're walking around our living rooms, but that's okay. You're still a little battery, a power source of energy. And sexual energy, when we activate our sexuality, when we activate that kundalini, that energy within us, you know what I'm talking about. You don't have to believe in this new age spirit stuff to understand that you are an electric being. When we rev up our engines through orgasm and through arousal and getting our juices flowing and feeling good and getting that blood pumping, right? What we are doing is we are activating and charging that battery. The sexual energy and arousal is one of the ways in which we do that. So some people would say that if we are not expressing our sexual energy, if we are not able to move it around, whether through self-pleasure or with a partner, then potentially boredom may set in. And that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. But if boredom is a symptom of not wanting to resolve unwanted conflicts and uncomfortabilities, then that means it might not be real. So if it's not real, then what is boredom exactly? Sex boredom then may be chalked up to a need to shift in perspective, because this just means then that sexual boredom isn't real, and what has to actually shift is you. So I'm gonna get real with you, okay? I'm gonna get this goddess is touching your hair. That means I'm about to get really real with you, okay? We disconnect emotionally from our partners. And then what we do to make up for it is we depend on physical sensations to mask that void that we are feeling from not being able to feel intimately connected and emotionally connected to our partners. And we blame it on the sex. We say it's because we're not having sex. Oh, the sex is shitty. No, that's not real. We disconnect and then we blame it on the physical sensation and seek validation through that physical sensation, that immediate gratification. And that's what we do instead of facing the truth that our void is actually because we are not feeling connected emotionally and intimately to our partners. When we choose to play these mind games that we do sometimes in relationships that are really just so annoying, choose to play these like cat and mouse rejection, resentment games in our relationship, especially when it comes to our sex life, what we do is we decrease the eroticism, then we decrease the intimacy, and then we increase dissatisfaction. When your partner is mirroring dissatisfaction to you, how do you think you're going to come up to that and respond to it? We're going to respond to it with some more dissatisfaction, and then in the end of it, nobody's getting laid and everybody's grumpy as fuck. If you're bored in your relationship, then that means it's time to grow emotionally and relationally. It is time to take your relationship to the next level, either with yourself or with your partner. So I've got 2 tips to help you get through sexual boredom. The first tip is to take an emotional risk with your partner. Yes, take an emotional risk with your partner. Have a conversation that leaves you feeling a little bit vulnerable for the first time in a really probably long time. Have a real talk conversation, because I'm gonna be real with you. If you can't be in a relationship, or if your relationship is not a safe space for you to have some real down-to-earth conversations about your life, about yourself, about your emotions, then that's not necessarily a relationship that you're going to want to stay in when it looks that way. What that means is there's the potential then to grow. It doesn't mean you have to leave the relationship, but it does mean that there's the potential for you to grow relationally and emotionally together. Also, when it comes to taking the emotional risk, talk about your sex life. I know some of you out there right now have faked an orgasm since the beginning of 2020. And if you follow me, you know very well that faking orgasms is not something I take very kindly to, because all that is doing is perpetuating bad behavior. It's like giving a cookie to the dog that keeps shitting on the carpet. It's not fun, and it doesn't do anyone any favors, and in the end you still got to clean up the mess. You need to be able to emotionally take a risk with talking to your partner about your sex life and your intimate lifestyle, and talking about what you like, what you don't like, what you'd both maybe like to try that might be kind of interesting, with no judgment. Right now is the time to connect with your partner and potentially have a lot of fun. And tip number 2 is pay attention to you. I talk a lot about self-care. I talk a lot about self-love. I talk a lot about self-soothing. I am also going to talk to you a lot about being a little bit selfish. You need to be a little bit selfish. Okay there, Karen? I'm speaking to you. And how are you showing up for you right now? Because sexual boredom means that there's something wrong. It doesn't mean that you have nothing to do. It actually means that there's an incompatibility going on within and potentially around you. So what is that is agitating that inability to flow and move through your life, that inability to shift your energies that are in and around you all the time, in your mind, in your heart, in your body, in your vagina? That's where it all is. It's everywhere. People tend to settle. And some of you are fucking settling. And I know it, and you know it. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to yourself. I don't care. I'm not living your life. You're the one who's acting like you're living your best life. But if you are actively bored, then you are actively not living your best life. Why are you settling for boring sex? Why? Why? You literally go through your entire teen years hoping to have sex, hoping to get a little lick of the titty, right? Hoping to be able to make out with somebody, hoping to be able to like stick your finger in places that you just potentially may not be allowed to stick your finger in. I'm just saying, now you get to stick your finger wherever you want. Why aren't you? Aren't you having fun with each other and having a good time, but having fun with yourself and getting yourself, your priorities in check? People tend to settle for boring sex because the comfort is easier, because changing it and fixing it is hard. But I'm gonna tell you this, nothing worth having isn't worth working for. So are you going to lie to yourself and say, I have sexual boredom? Are you going to get up right now and say, let's make a change? All right, goddesses, thank you so much. I love you, I love you, I love you. Get your hearts up. Yes, live your best life. Mwah.